Welcome back to Self-Carapist Therapist Podcast. I'm your host, Lorraine Moorhead, and today I'm genuinely excited to bring you a conversation with the originator of acceptance and commitment therapy himself, Dr. Stephen C. Hayes. Dr. Hayes is a renowned clinical psychologist and professor emeritus at the University of Nevada with over 47 books and 700 research articles to his name. Many of you may already be practicing ACT-informed approaches without fully realizing it, and this conversation is a wonderful opportunity for us all to go deeper. We will make sure you leave knowing exactly how to learn more. Please share this episode with any colleagues who will be interested. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Hayes.
Well, thanks for the invitation. Looking forward to the conversation. And you're right. There's a lot of folks who are using ACT methods and don't know it. It's because we've been around a long time. But I always tell folks that's how change happens, and I'm happy with that, actually.
Yeah. And as I've been doing the podcast for a while now, and I had to reach out to you because I've been hearing elements of ACT, people who have been ACT curious, people who have been incorporating methods that I recognize to be related. And so I thought it would be great to just dive into the bones of what ACT is.
Super. Yeah. It should be a fun journey. Let's see where we go.
Okay. Well, for starters, what is it? What's the best way that you've had to describe it to people?
Well, part of the reason why it's sort of in the water and people use it is it was developed differently. For the first 20 years, it was invisible because of that. But it's a 45-year-long attempt to sort of hack the human mind and dig down to the smallest set of processes, small things you do that lift you up or push you down, that accounts for more of the issues that people have, both positive and negative, in more areas for more people and than any that was out there. And I think we've arrived at that. It sounds a little prideful, but I'm an old man. I can get away with it. And so basically what's different about it is that ACT is not a set of techniques. There's only 1,500 randomized trials on it because it can go anywhere a human mind goes. It's a model, but one that is constantly changing because it's science-driven. Fortunately, after 45 years, I can express it in a single sentence. You want me to try?
Go for it. Yeah.
All right. Here's what life's asking you to do. Life is asking you to learn how to be more open, aware, and actively engaged in meaningful life while scaling that to your relationships in your body. You can drop a pin on it and say, that's it. And when we look at all of the deeper clinical traditions, they all do that to a degree. We are a wing that mapped that out over 45 years. And as I say, the first 20 years in really isolation, because we were playing the game differently than anybody else before or since. So we have more data on processes of change, how change happens. But we've been around a long time. So if you're thinking third wave CBT, well, that's really basically driven by ACT. If you're just thinking modern CBT or mindfulness-based approaches, yeah, we're there too. If you're thinking things like, what about the relationship? What about traditions like Gestalt therapy, emotion-focused therapy, internalized family systems? Yep, we're in the roots of those things too. That's how old it goes and how deep it goes. But I'm not grabby about it. I don't want to be running around saying, hey, you're ignoring us. And we have a role in emotion-focused. Oh, please. All of that passes away. It's just prideful. What's really important is focusing on how to lift up the people we're working with. And if there's one thing I could put in the water, that means way more than so-called mental disorders, which is mostly a deception, a delusion, mostly wrong, a little right, but mostly wrong. And we're forced to genuflect in front of that or we don't get paid, but we all know it's not real. We need to work on the particular persons or couples or families in front of us. And that sentence that I just said can really help you do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Going back to the first 20 years then, or the very beginning, what need were you seeing that led to the development?
Well, part of this came out of my own suffering and my own panic disorder and hitting bottom. You can go look at my TEDx talk and see that, and finding that the evidence-based therapies didn't have much traction. And yet, I got into the field because I wanted to get the deepest part of humanistic traditions married up with the best part of the science traditions. And so after that experience and looking at where we are with behavior therapy, cognitive behavior therapy, behavior analysis, behavior modification, and not being satisfied, some of these words are now passé because that's how old this goes. The 20 years were spent digging down to, okay, what are the principles and processes we need? Because at the time, evidence-based therapy was based on animal learning. And yeah, that's important. We are still animals, but non-human animals are not doing what you and I are doing right now. And so in those 20 years was figuring out a usage-based model of cognition. Something at the time, 40 years ago, was laughable. You're thinking Chomsky, stuff like that. No, it's all modularized out in your head, and you couldn't possibly learn language without it. Well, now we've got DeepSeek, and we've got, your AI systems that are shocking us. And so the idea of usage-based as a way to get there is like, as familiar as today's AI news. But 40 years ago, it was like, what are you talking about? I'm having a lot of fun with that, by the way, with modern cognitive scientists, where I'm sending them things that are saying, this is awesome. I love that study. By the way, we did that 40 years ago. I try to do it in a way that's not shaming, but they are discovering and marrying up and not feeling too defensive about it. But in those 20 years, we worked out how to think about what the human mind's doing, which is very different and profoundly impactful on emotion, on sense of self, on motivation, on everything about us, on our relationships, and even all the way down to how our body responds to stress with things like epigenetic regulation or telomeres and all that kind of stuff. And then working on the philosophy of science even, that we could walk into the lion's den of languaging about language, which is really hard without, or not just slipping into things that everybody else is already saying, because we have lots of theories about language, not just in psychology, but just lay things, it's built into our cultural traditions. So when I finally felt as though I had that right and I knew how to move those processes are a word for the small steps, comes from the word meaning procession, the parade of little things you do, lift you up or push you down. Then I stepped forward in 1999, 20 years in, and said, okay, we arrived at something. 2004, declared the arrival of the third wave of CBT. At the time, ACT had 4 randomized trials in total, only one of which was published, 2 of which. And now a new randomized trial every 2 days. And
oh, wow.
The evidence-based therapy for people who don't like evidence-based therapy.
Yeah. Did ACT even precede DBT?
Yes, it co-evolved. I mean, Marcia is a lifelong friend. I mean, she's in my care facility now, so that, but we won't hear original things from Marcia anymore. There's some echoes of her work because she is such a giant. But she and I were friends before there was either a DBT or an ACT.
Wow.
In fact, I published with her in the early 80s or mid 80s a really, really cool study, too, as a matter of fact, which you might even, if you want me to share it, I will. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll put it in the show notes.
But anywhere that DBT goes, ACT is happy to go because she just cleared the field for a lot of these things. And it does turn out that sentence I gave you, learning how to be more open, aware, and actively engaged in a meaningful life, scaling that to your relationships in your body. We call that psychological flexibility, even though it goes beyond psychology to your body and your relationships. And it turns out that is the mediator of DBT too. And so we're so much fellow travelers that if you ask, well, why does DBT work? You easily can come over and borrow from the work that's done in ACT. And the society that is of therapists mostly, but others who are developing ACT have a very robust DBT wing and an MBCT wing and a CFT wing and a FAP wing and a lot of the alphabet soup of different methods. It's called Association for Contextual Behavioral Science. My wife's is an ACT DBT therapist and one of the better known DBT researchers out there with college students. $15 million or grants or something ridiculous as a practicing person in a college counseling center. So she's an unusual person. Yeah, I love Marcia, and I'll always be thankful for my friendship and relationship with her.
Yeah, that's really special to hear. Sometimes, even exploring different modalities in this way, we hear from a lot of folks who are really diehards about one particular method or another. So it's really neat to hear that you've surrounded yourself with proponents of other modalities, even in your home.
Well, that's true. And actually, where ACT is going, it's going so far in that way. Some of my ACT friends are afraid that I'm giving away ACT or going to destroy it. Because really, what we need to do as therapists is focus down to the processes that are lifting up or pushing down the persons in front of us.
Yeah.
And when we get there, who you are, what technique or what little, oh, please, come on, let's focus on what the person needs. Let me just give you a kind of a shocking two set facts that I think could drive this conversation. Number one, when you look at people who failed at psychotherapy, didn't like psychotherapy, didn't serve their interests, you do qualitative studies, just open questions, ask them what was going on. By far, the reason that they're upset is they don't feel as though they were listened to and what was offered didn't fit them.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's our job to get with the human beings we're serving and empower them. Not to tell them, not to bend, not to be in a horizontal way that lifts them up and even empowers them to do things on their own. We're not the only channel to change. I mean, people have wisdom traditions and spiritual traditions and the deepest literature and so forth. I mean, there's a lot of wisdom out there, and we're not the fonts of it. So, start with that. Then kind of add in that if you're going to personalize, you want to draw from anything that moves those processes, but put them into a model that you feel comfortable with, you're able to do it, you have some skills with it. Now, if you draw a little fence around you and say, I'm this kind, almost certainly you're putting aside things that sometimes are helpful to the people, even things you like. And yeah, that person who's giving you the certificate or telling you you're at the fifth level of the woo-woo if you only pay the founders. I mean, come on, some of that's prideful. It's driven by money. It's corralling therapists. If instead you look at what works for you in interaction with the human beings in front of you, here's the claim I would make. All of the things that work for you, if your eyes are open, your ears are open, they work because you see them moving the processes that are important for that person.
Yeah.
So how about if we go to a thing where we have models that help keep us oriented, because we don't just want, kind of gumbo with anything thrown in. You can throw ingredients into a soup that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You can have repulsive dishes just by throwing everything in the kitchen. But having a stew or a gumbo that takes the best things that fit this combination for this person, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
So we call that process-based therapy or a process-based approach. We're increasingly saying a process-based approach because we just say process-based therapy. They think it's yet another type of therapy. No, it's just a way of thinking about what we all do. Focus on the person, couple, or family that's in front of you. Look at the processes that lift up or push down. Because ACT was at it so early, a lot of that will fit the psychological flexibility model. In fact, if you get broad about it, it'll all fit. I can tell that story if you want. And that's an evidence-based claim. But then use what moves the person by some of it trial and error, some of it intuition, some of it prioritizing. This person really needs help with this process. And if you do that in a more Catholic way with a small c, to my way of thinking, if you're focused on those processes, you can call it ACT, or you can call it Uncle Fred the Wonder Slug. I don't care. Why should I care? All of that will disappear. I mean, that's all just prideful castles in the sky. You go 100 years from now, nobody's talking about ACT. Nobody's talking about CBT. So what are we holding on to, gang? Instead, let's move the ball down the road. And so that's my message is, now, because I believe ACT is a model, I've said early on, and kind of shocked people in a way, anything that is focused on these processes, you have my permission to call it ACT if you want to. Sometimes brands help, but you don't have to. And at the end of every workshop I do, I say, by the way, take everything you learned in here, and if you want to rename it, relabel it, and you're not doing it just for pride, just for, oh, this is mine, or it's some sort of weird thing like that, go ahead. You don't need my permission. Every single workshop. So I've been living this for 40 years. And, I'm proud of the fact that there's a lot of folks that call themselves ACT people, but I don't really care about that as much as the fact that more and more people are focusing on psychological flexibility and how to put it into the hearts and heads and hands of human beings. And if you're with that, as a therapist, and something that I'm saying right now resonates to you, come out, hang out with us. You'll find that we're a wonderful group, and that they will be really interested in your ideas and not just, socializing you to our privileged terms or something. And bring your own voice to it. And we've done that worldwide. There's more lower and middle income country randomized trials on ACT than any other method. Do you know that?
Oh, wow. No.
By far. Not even close. So, and
do you see that as an accessibility? Because of accessibility? Yeah.
Here's why it's happening. If you say to a therapist, here's the process. Now, how you talk about it, how you move it, the metaphors you use, even the concepts, that's up to you. But see this process right here? Figure out how to move that. So let's take something like values. Values are important for human beings, however you language about it. But we've made big mistakes, especially in the weird world. In the Western, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic world, we've done really stupid things like, here's the list of values. Are you kidding me? Have you ever talked to indigenous peoples about their theory of values? You're going to have to spend hours and hours and hours even to understand it. I've done this with the knowledge keepers in Canada. Oh. It's a 7-part system, and it has to do with respecting the rocks, literally. Or you talk about your grandfather, it's the same word as talking about your grandson, the same word. Because you're thinking of yourself, not as just an individual, but as an arc of 6 generations. You can't do that, white guy. You can't do that. But you can respect that and you can empower that. How would you do it? Well, let's talk about what is your values. Can you help me with that? Help me understand that. And I will work with you to empower that. You see the move?
Yeah.
That will go around the world.
Yeah. Just to reflect, it sounds like we would be remiss to offer a list of values because that would be me-centric to give you a list of values that I think constitute values. Whereas by exploring the premise in an open-ended way with the person that I'm working with, I'll hear things I didn't even conceptualize in language for.
Exactly. Yeah. But that same is true with emotions. The same is true with thoughts. The same is true with sense of self.
Yeah.
And the cultural and relationship kinds of issues and so forth. So put that on steroids, the point you just made. And we do it. Where do we do it? We do it in diversity, equity, inclusion trainings, for example. Yeah, but if we're not careful, then we end up with something more like, oh, people from Japan are like this. You're not treating people from Japan. You're treating this Japanese person.
Yeah.
Open your ears, open your eyes, learn how to be, yes, informed by what we know from culture, but always ready to go from the aggregate, which is just a generalization and is an ill-fitting suit for any particular person, to really getting with the person you're working with. And I think those sets of tools will do you so much good with the next client you have, number one. Number two, it makes sense of why, the third leading country producing randomized trials on ACT is Iran. Now, who would think that? And down there in the top 5 or 6 is China. And who would think that? Or, I'd go to Brazil. I gave a talk and 4,000 people showed up.
Wow.
Yeah, because people see themselves when you allow them to take the principles and processes that we're working on in our profession and in our science and give it away. Don't charge for it if you can avoid it. Give it away. Don't grab about trademarks and all that nonsense. Do you know you can't trademark a act? We have fought and fought to keep people from trademarking it.
Oh,
We just won't allow it.
Wow.
And if you try to do it and you're a recognized trainer, you get cast out of the recognized trainer group, and they see that if you start making proprietary claims. So we want to be Linux, not Microsoft, and open source and not closed. But when you do that, the best minds come. And so we find amazing clinicians and scientists. And because of that, ACT is on all those lists of evidence-based therapies and all that kind of stuff, but not because we were chasing syndromes or being grabby about techniques. We were just empowering people to bring their best ideas and put it into the lives of people.
We talked a little bit about values. Would it be okay to go through the 6 core processes and give a little bit of background on each of those also?
Sure would. And remember, you got to extend them to your body and relationships and culture. But the 6 are, and they're not hard and fast divisions. The way I describe it, it's like having a box with 6 sides. If you thought of one side as completely separate and you separate it out and put it on the floor, it's not a box anymore and you can't stand on it. Do that with 2 or 3 and all you got is sheets of paper. So in the same way, they fit together, but it's really more like 8-sided and maybe even 9 for a reason I might mention. But let's start with a 6 because that is the one we developed the most. Life is asking you to be more open, aware, and actively engaged. Well, each one of those has 2 features. You need to be cognitively open, different thoughts, etc. You need to be emotionally open, different emotions, and all of the things that are in there that are in your private world, your memories, your sensations, all of those. Openness means what? It means to learn from what your history gives you in the present moment as thoughts flicker out, memories flicker up, emotions show up, and to be able to receive the wisdom of that without running away or clinging. It turns out both running away and clinging are toxic. That's something that's newer. Being a joy junkie is not joyful. You probably know people you say, oh, look at the positive side, when somebody dies or something. Like, please.
Oh, yeah.
Come on. That's called validation.
Yeah.
So Marshall was right about that. So open emotionally, cognitively, and all the other. Aware, what do we mean? From this deeper sense of self that's sort of behind your eyes that connects you in consciousness to others. Like you and I are kind of looking at each other across however many miles the tech is producing. And I can see you seeing me. And you can see me seeing you. We're connected. Well, that starts when you're a neonate. I mean, the first day of birth, after birth, kind eyes, you'll dump endorphins because you're the social primate. You need to be a cute baby or you're going to die. And you need those giants around you. You come in yearning to belong and be connected. So there's this deeper sense of self that is inside, I think, our spiritual traditions, especially mindfulness work, psychedelic work, etc. You find a place that's not defined by just your skin or your features, but is more what connects you in consciousness with others, and then allocate attention in a flexible, fluid, and voluntary way. You got worries about the future? Well, welcome to being a human being. I do too. Just look at any of your screens and you'll see it. You got rumination about the past? Yeah. But if you can bring both of those into the present, you'll do a lot better job of managing that future and taking advantage of the wisdom of that past. The mind tells you got to ruminate and worry to make that happen. Total nonsense. The exact opposite happens. You just get mindy instead of open to intuition, things that are even beyond words, that are felt senses that come from your history, or yearnings that help inform your future, what you really want. Open and aware. Okay, now you get those on board. Those are called mindfulness skills, or you want to label. Now, actively engaged in what? in a life worth living. What do you mean? What are the intrinsic qualities of being and doing that you want to bring into your behavior that are so intrinsic that when you're doing that, you kind of know this is of importance? Whether you're Nelson Mandela in a cage and you're being kind to a prison guard, or you're finding a place to not snap back at the person that you love when they just once again pushed your buttons in the way they know how to. And, you're having that combination of a little bit of guilt, but also a little bit of defensiveness. And instead, in between, you listen and you show up and the relationship evolves. You share. So values put into habits. Commit in a committed way. I'm deliberately expanding. That's actively engaged. Open and very engaged. Now to scale that to your relationships in your body, you're doing good in the world. And with your relationships, I might think like, if you're going to be open to your own emotions, be open to the emotions of the people around you. If you're going to be open to your own thoughts, have a genuine conversation with people who have different thoughts without going judgy immediately, but really enter into their world. If you're able to step back and look at yourself in this witnessing point of self, go behind that eyes of the person that you're looking at and look back at you. Take perspective. Think about what's going to happen in the future with our grandkids if we keep doing what we're doing. And not do that just to shame yourself or have an anxiety attack. Do it as a way to expand your moments on earth so that you're doing something that's meaningful even beyond your lifetime. So I won't go through all of them, but I gave you 6. And I mentioned a few places where you can extend it. And can I say this? It sounds prideful as heck, but we've actually taught AI to do this. We've taken every single concept about human beings and their qualities from the American Psychological Association dictionary. And we've taught an AI system to recognize just in the speech or in little single, if you were going to create a measure, like to take frequently both a positively worded and negatively worded item that would tap into that. Every single one of them falls into what I just said. And when we look at the science of it, what are the mediators of change, the statistical pathway of change using the way we do it now? That we can do better, but doing the way we do it now, every single known mediator, meaning an empirically established pathway to change, that psychotherapy of any kind, anywhere in the world, in any language, took us 3 years to do this. That's been replicated at least once. We did a gigantic study, and every single one fits into that sentence I gave you. So that doesn't mean other things might come up, but if you name any term, and you might challenge me, it would be fun to see, attachment, whatever, anything, you're going to find it in that sentence. And so why would we then create all these partitions between us and this island archipelago with different languages and barriers, and your boat can't land because you're not certified and you don't have no place? People can sense how prideful it is. And therapists are getting corralled for money and pride instead of being empowered to do their work. And the same thing with the people we serve. I mean, it isn't just change 1.0 therapists helping, and the amount of help we now need, where it's not 1 out of 5 with a so-called mental disorder, but 5 out of 5 who need resilience to face the change in the modern world. We better figure out a way to empower people and give away, not just, I'll schedule you 5 weeks from now in a 1-hour slot if you have money to pay me.
Yeah. Have you seen any approaches? Have you seen any colleagues or people doing this, or maybe you or your wife, that have figured out a way to give it away, to reach more people, to reach more clients, to be able to serve people in need more readily?
The best clinical voices out there, and I mean the ones down the hall in your clinic, are doing that already. The ones that you would refer your family members to. Mm-hmm. You've got people who say they've got this or that certificate, or all prideful about this or that training, who, think that their way is the right way, and you wouldn't refer your dog to them. Let's be honest. If you're in a large clinic, you know, especially if we're in systems of care where people can't be fired or whatever. So, no, I really am lifted up by the clinical voices first and foremost. The science voices are usually, science and the academy pulls for this because the main thing they get isn't money, it's social approval. Why are you on that editorial board? Why were you nominated for that award? Why was it? It's social approval. Whereas if you have a practice, if you're not being of use to people don't necessarily want to come to you. And so now it's true, you can figure out a way to just produce dependency in the name of the relationship, let's say. And you know people like that.
Yeah.
But you also know really wise old birds, I bet you, who are just good. Or they don't have to be old even. They can be brand new, but they're just good. They naturally give away. They naturally share. They naturally focus on the particular person and try to bring the best. Well, what I want to do is get the scientists to line up with that. And you can watch me work. If you hear something from some big treatment developer and you won't be able to see them get in with somebody where they didn't prep it, it's not a film that's the best one. No, live on stage, give me somebody that you have no idea this is what's coming. Put up or shut up. If you don't see that, be cautious about genuflecting in front of researchers. You mentioned Marcia, and she brings it. And I've seen her do it. And, so that kind of credibility, if the scientists then realize how we've fallen short, and I can sing that song, it's shocking how far we've fallen short. And I hope people who are more practically oriented are hearing something in my voice and the way I'm talking about things that sounds vaguely convincing that I'm on your side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's come together in community.
Yeah.
As professionals, but also with the voice of our clients loud. Not just like this, but more horizontal. Because let's face it, we're suffering too. The divorce rates among therapists are worse than the ones that are out there who are not in therapy. And so we don't have any right to be doing this kind of stuff. We're in the same stream. And so let's find a way to really listen to those clinical voices and wisdom voices and client voices and get the researchers on the same page. We've come up with some new ways to do that. I'd be happy to share them some of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd be curious how you've seen that happen or how you've been doing that.
Well, here's some of the things we're doing. One, you need to know that the statistics that go from here's the randomized trial to here's what you should do for your client are mostly wrong.
Okay.
Profoundly wrong. I mean, this is how wrong they are. They include an assumption that you can't meet. That's bad. Mathematics are based on assumptions. That's Gödel's theorem, if you want to get into it, that you have to assume things even to create any kind of complex system of thought. And if you are violating your own assumptions, how do we know that your conclusions are valid? The answer is we don't. So here's what we've assumed. We've assumed that differences between people give you the metric to put people in a bell curve and look at the tips and predict their future. Every single big method you can name, every single one. Pearson's correlation, analysis of variance, factor analysis, psychometrics, every single one requires the assumption that differences between people put into a bell curve allow you to categorize people to predict their future. Do you know that that's false? It's provably mathematically false, and it can never be corrected because the formulas don't work. The first person to ever say that and apply it to psychology was 20 years ago. The number of statisticians who know what I'm talking about is probably 2% of the biostatisticians. The number of researchers who know are probably 0.2%. Okay, if you want to know the name of the theory, it's called the ergodic theorem. Statistical physics came up with it in the 1800s. It was proven in the early 1930s, and we're just now waking up to it. You don't need to know the geek. What you need to know is this. You're being lied to by your journal articles when they give you a smooth curve of means and standard deviations, and they tell you your client is likely to respond that way. No, here's the way you need to build it instead. And there's a few parts of psychology, including the one that I'm part of, so I can do a Numa dance around that. If you start with the person or the couple or the family, it's not defined by the skin, but the particular, okay, and then you model within and use variation within instead of between. So think about how crazy it is that we do, like if we do a pre-post or something.
Yeah.
Lorraine, if I want to understand you, I'm going to take your snapshot. Boom. I'll take a measure, right? Mm-hmm. Before I say anything about you, I have to run out and take 100 more snapshots of other people. Now I understand you.
Yeah.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
But that's the one that's going to give you the score on the test you just took. A single snapshot.
Yeah, sure. How all these other people are doing is going to predict how I, Lorraine, am going to be doing.
And you ever taken a psychometrics class? I come out of that tradition. My grandfather was Alan Edwards for the Edwards Personality Inventory. Social design.
Oh my gosh. Interesting.
University of Washington, man. I'm out of the psychometric stream.
You're immersed, yeah.
Yeah. But it's insane. It makes no sense. What a clinician would do if I want to understand you, I would ask about your past. I would watch what you do in session. I'll see what happens over sessions. So it'd be like a snapshot of Lorraine in this context. Now another one, now another one, now another one, now another one, including some that you could talk about that go way back. And then looking at what lifts you up, pushes you down, not some abstraction of the mean of an aggregate. We call it a group. It's not a group. If they know each other, you have to correct for it. That's not a group. It's just an aggregate. It's just a big pile.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have developed, and if I can get out of the geek, let me just give you I'll give you two practical things that you could do, just thinking clinically, and then maybe the third one that I have some interest in, but it's in my not-for-profit. One thing you could do. Look at the work on perceived causal networks. We have a version in an app that my charitable organization has developed called the Personalized Life Assessment Network, but you can do it just paper and pencil. Write down a core of something you want to do and start with yourself. If you don't know that it works with you, why would you suggest it for your clients?
Okay.
Give a circle and put in there something that you really hold as important in your own words.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's going on in your life that you think might be related to that helpfully? How about hurtfully? Is there anything we need to track that happened in your deep history that's relevant? How about the future? Is anything in there? Now you got about 4 or 5 little circles. Draw arrows as how you think they're connected. Do you know just that has an impact on people? It has an impact on your case conceptualization. There's tools out there, including ones that you can ask before the first session for people to do it themselves. It's that simple. It takes about 10 minutes. Something like 95% of the clients like it, and a similar percentage of the therapists like it. Why? Because it gives you a little diagram. And sometimes people go like, wow. And all they're saying is what they already know.
Yeah.
Step number 2, measure that. Now you can measure it by just creating some items, and there's tech tools to do that, ecological momentary assessment, and wonderful ways to analyze it. We have that in my research team. If you come to my website, I'll try to get you some of the connections, or you can go to ibh.com, Institute for Better Health. That's my charitable organization.
Okay.
But beyond that, to the therapists, look, you are measuring your clients. You're doing it every session. You're watching and you're listening. That's called measurement. Observe and measure. If you simply were to take that little network you had developed with your client or with you, it'd be really fun to do this with yourself because you'll be shocked what you see. You could write down the questions for those nodes. Like, how would you know that you did that? Ask yourself that once a day. Put it down in an Excel spreadsheet. Yeah. After about 3 or 4 weeks, you can just look at how they correlate, and you're going to be shocked. Some of the ideas that you have are wrong, but you could do it in the session just by getting that spidey sense. Let's say somebody wrote down, I want to be more intimate in my relationships. And let's say we write down, oh, maybe what is something that inhibits that? And the person said, I feel really vulnerable. And maybe unpack that a little bit. And it turns out there's a historical event. I was brutally betrayed by a boyfriend 20 years ago. Or I was shamed in this way with it, or something, right? Some traumatic thing or something. Okay. So let's say I'm just writing down every day, or maybe twice a day, how willing was I to step into vulnerability? Okay. What is the quality of my intimate interactions with this person I love or person? Okay. Now you look at it as a system, as how they all correlate, and you start seeing you're a complex network. And when you do something like, oh, I'm not going to go there, it makes me feel so vulnerable. Okay, but then what happens? Maybe there's another little node over there. I get distracted in work, or I disappear into YouTube, or, these things that don't seem related, but wait a minute. Why are you doing that? Instead of maybe going down the hall and sitting with the person you love and saying, oh, I really felt afraid when you said this.
Yeah. You're able to kind of keep track. The first day I do it, and I'm going to try to include a diagram in this video as an example of what we're talking about. But the first day I do it, I might say it just feels a bit vulnerable. But then as I explore, I'm kind of like, oh, and my energy is going here, and I'm feeling this, and I'm evading it for this reason.
Well,
and
you're anticipating something. I've done multiple measurement sets of myself where I get a little thing. If you go to, this is commercial, so in principle, it might someday give me some kind of profit. It's called Psychflex, Psychflex, psychflex.com. Inside it has the charitable one we call MindGrapher.
Okay.
But we're working to pull it all, we'll see, into a charitable organization, so I don't have to worry about COIs anymore, because I hate that. But I'll actually show you a little screen here right now.
Yeah.
That's me with my data set.
Oh, cool.
You can't read it, but it says letting go of control.
Yeah.
Why? I'm on my 4th data set. And when I first started one, I was shocked. Within 2 or 3 days, I'm like, wow, this is important. And my behavior changed.
Oh, interesting.
There's an old literature called The Reactivity of Self-Monitoring. And you're looking at somebody who did some of the most cited work in that in the 1980s. My first big article was 1980. I'm talking 45 years ago.
Cool.
Well, I'm looking at like, why am I doing this set? I'll explain why. I had a trauma history. You can look at my TEDx talk and see it. And the way I describe it is I was 8 going on 38, because I literally thought I wouldn't survive my childhood. Not because I was being physically abused, but because my parents were so into their pathology, they wouldn't even know that we are alive around them sometimes. Yeah. And do really scary things. I tell the story of watching my dad rip out, just angry as mad, in my old Plymouth station wagon. And my brother was sitting on the tailgate and he didn't see it, and he fell on his head on the street. Oh. And I'm thinking, we're going to die. We're just not, right? It's not a good thing to be an 8-year-old who's 38.
Yeah.
Guess what happens? You become a control person. You're trying to be an adult without having the ability to do it. Guess what I do now at 77 years old?
Try and be a control person.
Yeah. So like my wife is putting something in the dishwasher and I rearrange it.
Yeah.
Why? Plus, it's
Yeah.
irritating. She goes back to why did you say it? So I've got this little item. I'm consciously letting go of the 1,000 things I do over a week that are tiny, tiny, tiny little echoes.
Yeah. Nodes.
Yeah. Well, and it has a good effect on me because I'm letting go of needlessly tracking stupid little things that make no difference and that irritate the people around me.
Yeah.
And it opens up a space where I can just be with people without trying to be in control over stupid shit.
Yeah. And it feels like this tracking system pointed you in the direction of what's actually worth tracking.
Exactly. So here's the mistake we've made clinically, because all of us know homework, it matters. Many of us, thought records, so forth, the DBG diary,
Yeah.
we know there's some power in there. You make these things really personal in the client's own words about the stuff they deeply care about. All of this stuff about, people don't like doing it, just get them to try within a day or two. It's like, I want to do this. I'm curious. This is important. I want to know. And then if you can follow it up, and now we have the ability to use things like this racing tools Netflix is using to keep you buying their stuff. You can use tools that allow you to see patterns when you're feeding it. But can I come back to how different that is than what you were reading in journals?
Yeah.
What you're reading in journals is you're comparing the person not to a real person, but to an abstraction called the average person. You want to know something shocking? I was talking about the mediational studies that show this is the pathway of change. We have some data now with studies like that where not a single person followed that pathway, and the statistics says that's the pathway. It can happen.
Yeah.
You can see how it can happen.
You can see how it would lead us all astray when it does.
Yeah, in fact, we're told very pridefully in the articles or the chapters in our Psych 101 class, our intro. This is what the scientific method is. No, this is what we've been socialized to think as a scientific method, but it doesn't fit the use case of actually helping a particular person or couple or family, and that's our business.
Yeah.
So we're changing that, and we're coming up with tools. And can I throw a smoke bomb in the room? I know we're probably getting to the end of our time, but can I?
No, go ahead.
Here's the smoke bomb I want to throw in. If you ask the question, why do we do this? Why have we spent more than 100 years living inside a mathematical error?
Mm-hmm.
Coming up with results that don't fit the actual people we're working with? Well, here's my question to you. You ever done a Pearson's R? You ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Okay. How about a Fisher's Z?
I don't think so.
How about a Yates correction on the chi-square?
No.
Okay. How about a standard deviation?
Yes.
Okay. All of those tools were developed by biostatisticians long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And every one of them, this question I'm about to ask, fits. What were they professors of? The ones who developed these tools that you just commonly use and think that's really what science is about if you want to be an evidence-based clinician.
Math?
You'd think math, right? Or maybe statistics, right?
Yeah.
Here's the sick answer. Eugenics.
No.
Yes.
Oh.
You get it?
Yeah, I get it.
Here's the bell curve. Here are the ones that should have babies. Here are the ones that we should freaking sterilize.
Yeah.
Due to 67% of the presidents of APA and the US of A from 1892 to 1947 were card-carrying eugenicists. Have you read that in the books? No, you
They
haven't.
left that out, didn't they?
That part out. Well,
Oh my gosh.
you're going to say, oh, it's the Nazis. Friends, the Nazis copied the laws from the US of A word for word, and they were written 12 years earlier. So don't be blaming the Nazis for what we did. And the we, here's the we: psychology, psychiatry, the behavioral sciences. You don't have to go to any convention before you say, oh, I wish the world was listening to us more. We have so much wisdom to give. Friends, they did listen to us. And they produced a tragedy that's 150 years old of racism and anti-Semitism. Do you know the person, I'm on a rant, quick. The person that developed the word schizophrenia, a guy named Bleuler, all right? Does that sound familiar from your old history of psych?
Yeah.
Okay, he wrote a text 9 years after he came up with the word, or 9 or 12, called a textbook on psychiatry in 1924. I'll give you the page number where he says, and the more severely disturbed should be sterilized.
Yeah.
The labels, you take something like intellectual disability. Every single one of those labels were in the laws that allowed you to sterilize them, to keep them from polluting the gene pool because they were an imbecile, a moron. I'm sorry for the words, but that was the technical terms. Or retarded, or then developmentally disabled, but it was the same message: you're not worthy. And, you know, we knew 100 years ago that with proper socialization and so forth, people's IQs, even in the parts that you say can't change a lot. That's a fact. And we've sterilized people.
These are some things that we've seen broad shifts in, and hopefully we continue to more of a positivity. How do we, instead of trying to change behaviors that people have, how do we lift up the behaviors that they have that are really able to...
The neurodiversity movement, I think, is really important if we can avoid the error of yet another categorical normative system, but instead get the real message. You're a particular person. And don't be categorizing people and thinking you can predict their future. Let's work within that to see what do you want for your future. Let's listen. Yeah. Let's serve. And to the clinicians who are listening right now, if it still sounds a little abstract, try it on yourself, a little bit of do a network, measure a little bit, but also consider the things that you really hold dear. And most clinicians do hold dear the fact that some of their clients are being stigmatized. They're being treated unfairly. And friends, if we're going to change that, we are going to have to change that.
Yeah.
Don't rely on the academic medical centers and their muckety-muck researchers with big grants, because they're still chasing the delusion of, oh, you have a disorder that has these features, without coming to terms that there's 10 million different combinations. If you include specifiers, 161 million combinations, more than 500,000 for PTSD alone. This is a joke. This is not how we are going to figure out how to help people. We need something simple that empowers your work clinically. And I gave you one. Help your clients learn to be more open, aware, and actively engaged in a meaningful life, and scaling that to relationships in your body. Do it in your own way, with your own terms, with your own methods. And if you want to call that act, you can. Come hang out with us. And if you don't, that's great. Still come out and hang with us. Because from the bottom up, we can do better than what our books are saying we have to genuflect in front of, that don't tell us how to serve the particular people in front of us.
Yeah. The screen that you showed me, the app that your organizations are working on, do you anticipate a way that'll track outcomes or?
Yeah. And in fact, we start with self-report and a small number of items, but, most of us are familiar. I mean, I know how many steps I took. I know what my heart rate variability is. I can calculate my polyvagal tone. I can put in my mindfulness ratings. young people are not at all surprised over this idea of measurement. And
True.
athletes and others, people who are high performers, are used to it. Clinicians are often used to it because you look at some of the metrics. You may be required to because of some of the bean counters inside of the folks who pay you. We can do a lot better than that, a lot better than that. But also, things like feedback-informed therapy from the folks who are especially interested in the therapeutic alliance. Mm-hmm. And that also makes sense. It fits within the model I gave you, by the way. So I think the things that are required from top down, we can do a little jujitsu on. Yes, we want outcomes. We want real outcomes, not just signs and symptoms of a latent disease that we never find.
Right.
Over 50 years, not one example of a latent disease being discovered, not one. But what are the things that employers care about, that the client cares about, that the family of the client cares about? Those things can be measured, and often without a lot of intrusive stuff on the client. And this takes me back to evidence-based therapy before it became what it became. And if you're hearing only behavior therapy and you're hearing only CBT, listen more carefully, because what you're seeing in the DBTs of the world, the CFTs of the world, and so forth are echoes of part of our own history. Can I tell a little story there that will jump out?
Yeah.
I'm at a wing of behavioral thinking that thought functionally and contextually. It's not mechanistic. It's thinking of people as a whole system where everything is, you're kind of breaking up a stream for your purposes to help serve the person, but you don't think they're like Tinker Toys or Lego blocks. They're more like a stream of water. Okay. And here's the little question that will help people understand where I came from. I usually don't say this next sentence easily, but I will. Underneath ACT is B.F. Skinner. Now, most people think, oh my goodness, mechanical man, push, pull, click, click. Before you do that, let me just say this. Who is the person he cited the most and always favorably in all of his writings?
Freud.
All right, I'll ask you another question. Who is Ralph Hefferlein?
An early Gestalt guy?
The first, right in the book, right in the first book. A rat-running behavior analyst at Columbia who's an office mate with Fred Keller, who's B.F. Skinner's pal in graduate school. And people look at ACT and they say, it looks a little bit like Gestalt therapy. You think? Because when you really think functionally and contextually, the thing that's in that early book, and I'm an old hippie that loved that, Gestalt meant really looking at your own experience carefully and finding wisdom within, trying to bring the present focus to what actually works, but using the reads you get from opening up to your emotions. That's why emotion-focused therapy is just the child of Gestalt. Sue Johnson, Les Greenberg, they're Gestalt people. Okay, emotion-focused therapy. What else came out of that tradition? Internalized family systems. People look at me and they say, oh, you're using the little kid exercise. Did you get that from IFS? Well, I might have, except IFS happened 20 years after.
Later, yeah.
So here's what I'm saying to it. Here's what I'm saying. I think we can take science traditions that have always focused on the particular, behavior analysis, one animal at a time, measured over time. Now, I get it doesn't deal with cognition. I get that it's just animal learning, but it's a special way that is really close to what you're doing clinically. And so the people of the world like functional analytic psychotherapy, Bob Kohlenberg, behavior analyst, trained in those old methods, reading the room clinically. What is the move they just made? If your client says, I can't come next week, and you got a very submissive client, boy, you better reschedule. Don't be saying, hey, I already scheduled it in there. You said you could come last week. You can't change. No. For this client, They need that running room. It was hard for them to tell you, I can't come next week.
Yeah.
And if you really care about lifting them up, look at your own behavior. How would you do that? For the next client who's doing it every single week, and then I said, well, you're going to actually have to, if we change like that, there is a little fee that has to, you do something to rein it in, because that's not what the person needs to learn. In fact, it's what's creating problems for them elsewhere. So
going back to that,
the best of our more idiographic traditions, focus on the individual, learn how to lift up. And if we do that, we have an exciting future for us as therapists, changing the world, not just in our consulting room, but in getting people to think about their own lives in a more individualized and empowering way.
Mm-hmm. Looking for that opportunity, even for each of us, and being open to the process that can offer our clients as well.
A beautiful connection, Lorraine. Yeah, we're people too.
Yeah.
And so I always just say, start with yourself. In the old days of the earliest evidence-based therapy, I mean, you're looking at somebody who literally was talking to Volpe or hanging out with Skinner. That's how old I am. Yeah, and I had a little recorder on my wrist, and I was doing experiments with myself. Everybody did. And now I'm still doing it, but I'm recording my
as we saw
measures and looking at these weird new statistics we've come up to look at patterns within my life so that I can be less controlling or be more there in the flow with the people I love or things like that.
Yeah.
So we can evolve as a field by going back to some of the best parts of our tradition in a way that doesn't squeeze anybody who's listening to right now. If you care about the people in front of you, that's the only ticket in you need. Let's create an alliance with redefining what evidence-based therapy means. It really means focusing on the particular, noticing what's happening in the room, measuring those processes that are important, and delivering methods that are fitted to the person. Every voice matters. And if we're not measuring, we're not listening. And if we're not personalizing, we're not treating. That's a formula that will carry us forward.
I like it. That feels like a good summary on what we've talked about today. Thank you so much, Dr. Hayes, for your time.
Well, thank you.
It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. And if people want to follow my work, you can go to my website. And either way, I hope some of what I've said here today is worthy of a little bit of playful exploration on your part.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll get it all linked for everybody listening.